The emergency alarms screamed through the cockpit as Nyx fought desperately with unresponsive controls. Her sleek reconnaissance vessel, designed for silent observation missions across the galaxy, bucked and rolled like a wounded animal as it plummeted through Earth's atmosphere. The crimson warning lights painted her violet skin in bloody hues while she worked frantically to restart the navigation system. "Come on, come on," she whispered in her native tongue, her elongated fingers dancing across crystalline control panels that flickered erratically. The ship's AI had gone silent 3 minutes ago, leaving her utterly alone as the blue-green world rushed up to meet her. Nyx was a scout for the Veilthurin Collective, trained since childhood to observe primitive civilizations from afar and report their technological development. Earth was supposed to be a routine mission: photograph their cities, catalog their weapons, document their social structures, then return home with data for the Council's archives. She'd done this 17 times before on 17 different worlds. It should have been simple. The ship suddenly lurched violently to starboard as it clipped the upper branches of towering evergreens. Nyx braced herself as the vessel carved a destructive path through the forest canopy. Ancient trees exploding into splinters around her. Impact threw her against the cockpit wall, and she felt something crack in her shoulder. Stars exploded across her vision when the ship finally came to rest, wedged between two massive pine trunks in a small clearing. Everything was eerily quiet. Nyx tasted copper in her mouth and realized she was bleeding from a gash on her forehead. Arm hung uselessly at her side, definitely broken. Worse still, the acrid smell of burning electronics told her that most of her ship's systems were completely fried. She managed to activate the emergency beacon with her good hand, but the response was immediate and terrifying. Signal transmission failed. Long-range communications offline. Hyperdrive core. Critical damage. Estimated repair time. Impossible without orbital facilities. Nyx slumped back in her pilot's seat, fighting waves of pain and despair. Her people had one absolute rule about first contact: never reveal yourself to primitive species. The consequences for breaking this law were severe exile from Veilthera, permanent separation from family, complete ostracization from their society. But what choice did she have now? Through her ship's cracked viewport, she could see Earth's alien forest stretching endlessly in all directions. The trees were nothing like the crystal formations of her homeworld. These plants seemed wild, chaotic, almost alive in ways that made her uncomfortable. Strange sounds echoed through the darkness, howls and rustles that her training hadn't prepared her for. Using her good arm, Nyx managed to seal her wounds with emergency biogel from the medical kit. The substance would prevent infection and accelerate healing, but she needed proper medical attention soon. Her broken arm was swelling rapidly, and she was beginning to feel lightheaded from blood loss as she worked. Nyx tried to remember everything she'd learned about humans during her briefings. They were supposedly violent, unpredictable creatures who destroyed anything they didn't understand. Her instructors had shown her historical footage of their wars, their weapons, their tendency to cage and experiment on other species. If they found her here, injured and helpless, she would become another specimen in their laboratories. But as the night deepened and the cold began seeping through her damaged ship, Nyx faced a harsh reality. She couldn't repair her vessel alone, and her emergency supplies would last maybe 3 days. She was trapped on an alien world, millions of light years from home. With no way to call for help, somewhere in the distance, she heard a new sound. That made her freeze, the rhythmic thud of footsteps approaching through the forest. Human footsteps. Marcus Rivera had been walking these mountain trails for 6 years, but tonight felt different. The meteorologist at base camp had reported unusual atmospheric disturbances around midnight, and Marcus had seen what looked like a fireball streak across the sky an hour ago. Now, as he made his routine patrol around the perimeter of Sentinel Peak Fire Lookout Station, the acrid smell of burning metal drifted through the pine-scented air. At 32, Marcus had chosen this isolated job deliberately. After losing his wife in a car accident 3 years ago, the solitude of the mountains had become his refuge. He spent his days scanning the horizon for smoke plumes and his nights studying astronomy through a powerful telescope mounted on his tower platform. The Forest Service radio was often his only human contact for weeks at a time. Following the strange smell, Marcus pushed through a thicket of mountain laurel and emerged into a small clearing where his breath caught in his throat. A craft unlike anything he'd ever seen lay twisted between two ancient pines, its metallic surface gleaming with an otherworldly sheen. Steam rose from vents along its hull, and strange symbols glowed faintly along what appeared to be a cockpit. Canopy. Jesus, Marcus whispered, pulling out his heavy-duty flashlight. The beam revealed scorch marks on the surrounding trees and debris scattered across the forest floor. This definitely wasn't any aircraft from Earth's military or civilian fleet. Movement inside the craft made him freeze. Someone was trapped in there, possibly injured. All his wilderness first aid training kicked in, overriding his amazement at the impossible sight before him. Marcus approached carefully, speaking in a calm voice he'd learned to use with frightened animals. "Hello? Are you hurt? I'm here to help." The movement stopped completely, as if whoever was inside had decided to hide. Marcus could see a figure, hunched in what looked like a pilot's seat, definitely injured based on how they held one arm against their body. The canopy appeared damaged, but not completely sealed. "I'm not military or government," Marcus called out, setting his flashlight on the ground so both hands were visible. "I'm just a fire lookout. I have medical supplies in my pack." For nearly 10 minutes, nothing happened. Marcus sat down on a fallen log, maintaining his distance while keeping his voice gentle and reassuring. He talked about the forest, the wildlife, anything to show he meant no harm. Finally, he heard a soft hiss as the canopy began to open. What emerged made Marcus's scientific mind reel, even as his heart filled with compassion. The being before him was clearly not human. Violet skin, large luminous eyes, elongated limbs, but the pain and fear in those alien features was universally recognizable. She was injured, bleeding from a head wound, and cradling what appeared to be a broken arm. "My name is Marcus," he said softly, the way he might speak to his late wife during her final hospital days. "What's yours?" The alien studied him with those remarkable eyes, and when she spoke, her English was perfect, despite a melodic accent unlike anything he'd heard. "I am Nix of Aelthara. I should not be speaking to you."
"You're not?"
Marcus asked, slowly reaching into his pack for his first aid kit. "My people believe yours are dangerous," Nix replied, but she didn't move away as Marcus approached with antiseptic and bandages. "Some of us probably are," Marcus admitted, echoing what felt like an ancient truth. "But some of us just want to help when we see someone hurting." As Marcus gently cleaned the cut on Nix's forehead, she flinched but didn't pull away. Her skin felt surprisingly warm, almost feverish. "Your arm is definitely broken," he observed. "I can stabilize it, but you need more help than I can give you here." "Where would you take me?" Nix asked, suspicion creeping back into her voice. Marcus looked up at the fire tower rising above the trees, its red beacon light blinking steadily against the star-filled sky. "My station. It's isolated, defensible, and has a radio if we need to call for help. Plus," he added with a small smile, "it's got a pretty good view of the stars. Something tells me you might appreciate that." Despite her pain, Nix's eyes followed, his gaze upward to the tower. For the first time since the crash, she felt something other than despair. Maybe this human called Marcus could be trusted, at least until her people came looking for her, if they ever did. The climb up the fire tower's 120 steps proved challenging with Nix's injuries, but Marcus patiently helped her ascend one level at a time. The octagonal cabin at the top was small but efficiently designed, with panoramic windows, offering a breathtaking view of the moonlit forest stretching to distant mountain peaks. Maps covered one wall, radio equipment occupied another, and a narrow bed sat beneath the eastern windows. "It's not much," Marcus said, helping Nix settle onto the bed, "but it's home." Nix gazed through the windows in wonder. Her people lived in underground crystal cities, and she'd never experienced being suspended high above a landscape like this. "It's beautiful," she whispered, "like flying without a ship." Marcus worked carefully to set her broken arm using supplies from his extensive first aid kit. Years of wilderness training had taught him to handle medical emergencies until rescue arrived. Though he'd never imagined treating an alien, Nyx's physiology was surprisingly similar to human anatomy, and she bore the pain with remarkable stoicism. "Biogel from my ship helps with healing," Nyx explained as Marcus wrapped her arm in a splint. "But your methods are more thorough than I expected." "How did you learn English so well?" Marcus asked, adjusting the sling around her shoulder. "My people have been observing Earth for decades. We study your languages, cultures, histories." Nyx paused, looking out at the star-filled sky. "Though our observations apparently missed something important about human nature." "What's that?" "Kindness," she said simply. "Our briefings focused on your wars, your weapons, your tendency toward violence. No one mentioned that some of you would risk yourselves to help a stranger." Marcus prepared a simple meal of canned soup and crackers, sharing stories about his life as a fire lookout. He told her about the bears that occasionally visited, the aurora he'd seen last winter, the meteor showers he tracked with his telescope. In return, Nyx described her homeworld Vale-Thoritz, vast crystal caverns, the luminescent gardens, the floating cities that moved with the planet's magnetic fields. "It sounds incredible," Marcus said. "Why do your people stay underground? Our sun is very harsh. The surface is mostly uninhabitable, except at the polar regions." Nyx's expression grew sad. "I became a scout because I wanted to see other skies, other worlds. But now I may never see home again." Before Marcus could respond, his radio crackled to life. "All stations, this is base command. Be advised we have reports of an unidentified aircraft crash in the northern sector. Military search teams are being deployed at dawn. Report any unusual activity immediately." Marcus and Nyx exchanged glances. She tried to stand, but he gently pressed her back onto the bed. "You're not going anywhere with that arm." "What?" "Besides, they're searching the crash site, not up here." "Don't understand," Nyx said urgently. "If they find traces of my ship, they'll expand the search. Your government has protocols for this kind of thing. How do you know about our protocols?" "Because we've seen it happen before on other worlds. First contact never goes well for the visitor." Marcus walked to his radio console and made a difficult decision. Instead of reporting Nyx's presence, he transmitted false information about the search area, directing teams away from the actual crash site. It was a violation of his duty. Something about the fear in Nyx's eyes reminded him of the promise he'd made to his dying wife, to always choose compassion over protocol. Over the next 2 days, helicopters buzzed overhead while search teams combed the forest below. Marcus and Nyx watched from the tower windows. She, teaching him to identify the constellations visible from Earth as they appeared to someone from Vale-Thara. He showed her how to use his telescope, and she gasped with delight when she spotted her home star system for the first time since the crash. "That's where you come from," Marcus said, adjusting the telescope's focus. "Where I came from," Nyx corrected. "Quietly, even if a rescue ship comes, I broke our most sacred law by revealing myself to a human. I can never go home." Marcus felt a familiar ache in his chest, the same hollow pain he'd carried since losing his wife. "Maybe home isn't always a place," he said. "Maybe sometimes it's the people who accept you exactly as you are." That night, as Nyx slept in his bed while he dozed in the observation chair, Marcus realized his isolation was ending. For the first time in years, he wasn't alone in watching the stars, but their peaceful sanctuary was about to be shattered. Agent Victoria Cross had built her career on finding things that didn't want to be found. 15 years with various government agencies had honed her instincts to a razor's edge. And right now, every instinct was screaming that something was very wrong with the official search reports, standing at the edge of the supposed crash site. Victoria surveyed the scattered debris with growing suspicion. The metal fragments looked wrong, too clean, too obviously from conventional aircraft. The burn patterns didn't match the eyewitness reports of the fireball that had streaked across the sky 3 nights ago. "Sir, we've completed the grid search," reported Sergeant Mills, her second in command. "No sign of survivors or additional wreckage." Victoria crouched beside a piece of twisted aluminum, running her gloved fingers over the edges. This is from a Cessna that crashed here 8 months ago. I read the report. She stood and faced her team. Someone's been feeding us false information. Her satellite phone buzzed with a call from her director. Cross, what's your assessment? We're being played, sir. Someone moved old wreckage to this site to throw us off the real trail. Victoria pulled out her tablet and began cross-referencing. Local personnel files. I need complete backgrounds on everyone with access to these mountains. Park rangers, fire service, research stations. Stations anyone who could influence the search parameters. You think we have a cover-up? I think we have. Someone protecting whatever really crashed out here. Victoria's investigation quickly narrowed to a handful of possibilities. But one name kept surfacing. Marcus Rivera, the fire lookout stationed at Sentinel Peak. His radio reports had been instrumental in directing search teams to the false crash site, and his background showed a troubling pattern of isolation and potential instability following his wife's death. Rivera's tower has clear sightlines across the entire northern sector, Victoria told her team as they studied topographical maps. If something crashed anywhere in that area, he would have seen it. You want us to pay him a visit? Asked Mills. Victoria checked her sidearm and communications equipment. I want us to pay him a very careful visit. If he's hiding something, it could be dangerous. Meanwhile, Marcus watched through his telescope as government vehicles gathered. At the base of his access road, his radio had been unusually quiet for the past hour, which meant they'd switched to encrypted channels. Not a good sign. They're coming, he told Nix, who was standing by the eastern windows despite his protests that she should be resting. How long do we have? She asked, her improved English now carrying hints of Marcus's regional accent after days of conversation. 20 minutes to climb the tower? Maybe 30 if they search the equipment shed first. Marcus grabbed his emergency pack and began stuffing it with medical supplies and food. There's a service ladder on the back side of the tower. We can know, Nix interrupted. I won't let you destroy your life to protect me. My life was already destroyed, Marcus said quietly. You gave me a reason to care about something again. Before Nix could respond, they heard the distant rumble of vehicles approaching through the forest. Marcus made a decision that surprised them both. Instead of running, he walked to his radio console and switched to the emergency frequency. Command, this is Lookout 7. I need to speak with whoever's leading the search operation. It's important. Victoria's voice crackled back immediately. This is Agent Cross, Federal Task Force. Go ahead, Lookout 7. Marcus took a deep breath. Agent Cross. I have information about the crash you're investigating, but I need your word that you'll hear me out completely before taking any action. That depends on what kind of information you're talking about. The kind that could change everything we think we know about the universe. Victoria paused, and Marcus could almost hear her mind working through the implications. We're coming up, Rivera. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. As the sound of boots on metal stairs echoed up the tower, Marcus turned to Nix. Whatever happens next, remember that not all humans are the same. Some of us are worth trusting. Nix reached out with her good hand and squeezed his fingers. I learned that from the best teacher possible. The footsteps grew closer, and both of them prepared to face whatever came next, knowing that their friendship had already changed them both in ways that couldn't be undone. Agent Victoria Cross expected many things when she reached the top of the fire tower. But finding an injured extraterrestrial being calmly sitting by the window wasn't one of them. Her hand instinctively moved toward her weapon. But something in the scene stopped her, the way Marcus positioned himself protectively near the alien. The obvious care with which she'd been treated, the complete lack of threat in the aliens. Postured despite her otherworldly appearance. Agent Cross, Marcus said steadily. I'd like you to meet Nix. She's been my guest for the past 4 days while recovering from injuries sustained in her crash. Victoria's team filled the small cabin behind her, weapons drawn but not aimed, clearly as stunned as their leader. Nix slowly stood, favoring her splinted arm, and spoke in that melodic accent Victoria would remember for the rest of her life. Agent Cross, I am Nix of Aelthera. Mean no harm to your world or your people. Jesus Christ, whispered Sergeant Mills. It's real. It's actually real. Victoria held up a hand for silence, her mind racing through protocols that seemed utterly inadequate for this moment. Marcus, you understand you've violated about 17 federal laws by not reporting this immediately. I understand I've saved a life, Marcus replied. Same thing I'd do for anyone else who crashed in my forest. She's not anyone else. She's Victoria stopped, looking into Nix's large, luminous eyes and seeing not a threat, but a frightened being far from home. Years of training warred with human instinct, and instinct won. Victoria slowly holstered her weapon and gestured for her team to do the same. Nix, she said carefully, are there others of your kind coming to look for you? I don't know, Nix admitted. My people may believe I'm dead. Rescue missions are rare, especially for scouts who break contact protocols. Victoria activated her satellite communicator. Sir, this is Cross. I need to speak with Director Hayes immediately. Priority Alpha clearance. She paused, looking around the cabin at an alien, a rogue fire lookout, and her own confused team. Tell him we have a first contact situation that requires immediate executive-level oversight, while Victoria coordinated with her superiors. Marcus showed Nix's recovered ship components to the military technical team. The wreckage had been secretly transported to a secure facility, but Nix's descriptions of its technology fascinated the specialists. She answered their questions willingly, explaining that her people's policy was to share knowledge once contact had been established, even if it was accidental. Your propulsion system, asked one of the technicians, how does it achieve faster than light? Travel. We fold space using crystalline matrices that resonate with cosmic background energy, Nix explained. It's not magic, it's physics your scientists haven't discovered yet. 3 hours later, Director Hayes arrived by helicopter with a team of xenobiologists, linguists, and diplomatic specialists. The small fire tower had become the most important location on Earth, and Victoria found herself managing humanity's first official contact with an alien species. This is unprecedented, Hayes told his assembled team. We're writing history with every decision we make here. The breakthrough came when Nix's people finally responded to the modified distress signal she and Marcus had managed to transmit using her salvaged communication device combined with his radio equipment. The response was swift as sleek rescue. Ship appeared in Earth's orbit within hours, requesting permission to approach. But as Nix prepared to leave, she made an announcement that surprised everyone, especially Marcus. I'm not going home, she told the assembled group. According to Vale Thran law, I'm already exiled for making contact. But more than that, I've learned something here that my people need to understand that different species can trust each other, help each other, even become friends. She looked directly at Marcus. I want to serve as an ambassador between our worlds, if both sides will have me. Director Hayes and the Vale Thran ship captain, speaking through translated communications, quickly agreed to an unprecedented arrangement. Nix would remain on Earth as the first official alien ambassador. A small human delegation would visit Vale Thara to establish formal diplomatic relations. 6 months later, Marcus had been reassigned to a new position as senior liaison for extraterrestrial affairs, working alongside Nix in a specially constructed facility near the fire tower that had become their first meeting place. The building featured both underground chambers that reminded Nix of home and high observation decks that satisfied her love of open skies. Do you ever regret crashing here? Marcus asked one evening as they watched the sunset from their favorite observation platform. Nix smiled, her violet skin glowing softly in the golden light. Crashing was the best thing that ever happened to me. I was so focused on watching worlds from a distance that I never learned how beautiful it could be too. Actually belong somewhere. Even if somewhere is a backwater planet like Earth, Marcus teased. Especially if it's a place where someone was willing to share their home with a stranger, Nix replied. That's not backwater, Marcus. It's the most advanced civilization I've ever encountered. Above them, the first stars appeared in the darkening skies, some leading to Vale Thara. There's 2 worlds not yet explored, all of them now representing possibilities instead of barriers. 2 beings from different worlds had found something universal in their friendship, and their trust had opened the door between the stars.